Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Very Cold Lasagna, the podcast that houses a safe and open listening platform for casual, cold, and even the dumbest takes on the world of WWE, AEW, the NFL, and the wide world of pro wrestling and sports in general. I'm your host, DylanLasagna. Welcome to today's episode number 64 of this freezing cold podcast. And man, we got some things to talk about today because the 49ers went out onto the road, onto the land of all elite wrestling, and put on a beatdown, an all elite, being the elite beatdown in Duval County on the Jacksonville Jaguars. Yes, that is right. The 49ers, this was no trap game for them. They went out and beat up on those sad Jags. They tamed them and put them to sleep. The Jaguars slept in the night, 30-10. That's what we're here to talk about in today's episode, in our weekly 49ers recap episode of Very Cold Lasagna. We're going to be talking about the game, my winners and losers of this game, and my takeaways from the game. And once all said and done, we're going to be talking about next week's Week 12 big matchup. Now it's big, against the Minnesota Vikings. So before we get started, make sure you listen to the show on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Anchor FM, as well as Google Podcasts. If you're watching this on YouTube, make sure you subscribe and turn on the notification bell and hit the like button. So this podcast, this show, can get recommended to just about everyone. And as always, make sure you follow the show on social media, on Twitter and Instagram at Very Cold Lasagna. So let's talk about this win by the 49ers. So when we were coming into this game in Jacksonville, we were coming off the heels of, Niners' biggest win of the season on Monday Night Football against the LA Rams, 31-10. It was a total beatdown in the brightest lights of Monday night. Remember last week, actually 2 weeks ago, when I mentioned how the Niners were gonna get massacred, they were gonna get destroyed on Monday Night Football in front of a nationwide audience. Kyle Shanahan was going to get exposed for his conservative play calling. Jimmy G was going to get his ass showcased as the check down artist. Jimmy Garbage Fail. The defense was going to get lit up by Matthew Stafford, Cooper Kupp, and now the addition of Odell Beckham Jr. Boy, was I wrong about that. Because the defense finally decided to show up. Jimmy Ward, the Niners safety, came back at a good time and intercepted Matthew Stafford twice. Got a pick six out of him too. And Kyle Shanahan put together a neat game plan of ball controlling for much of the game. What I mean by that is that, they ran a lot. They did a lot of running plays, to keep the Rams off the field. And they let Jimmy G throw a lot of short passes to Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, and George Kittle. And turns out they all turned it into big gains. Big chunk plays all game long. All of which made for a big win for a pretty decent schedule the rest of the way. And that started in Jacksonville. Meanwhile, for the Jaguars, they were 2-7 coming into this game. They were coming off a tough loss to their AFC South rivals in the Indianapolis Colts in Indianapolis. And this was a game for Jacksonville that they could have won. They honestly could have won this game because the Colts let them back in it. The Colts could have easily put them away. They could have dispatched them, but Frank Reich was like, nah, we're good with our first quarter 17-0 lead, so we're okay with that. And that allowed the Jaguars to get back into the game eventually, and they nearly could have won it. But rookie quarterback, their first overall pick, Trevor Lawrence, he was strip sacked on the Jags' last possession, which pretty much sealed their loss. So Jacksonville at this point is just looking for wins to inspire any confidence in their rookie quarterback, Trevor Lawrence. So they're not a playoff team. They got a pretty bad roster. Trevor Lawrence has no help. So Jacksonville is just pretty much looking for ways to get a win for Trevor. So even though the Niners were coming in to face a bottom barrel team, they couldn't take them for granted because this was a bottom of the barrel team that was pretty much competitive for the last two teams. The last two teams they played, they actually beat the Buffalo Bills. And a team that no longer has the lead in the AFC East that now belongs to the New England Patriots. Thanks a lot, Buffalo. So the Jaguars, I guess, yeah, they actually beat the Bills thanks to the Allenception, Josh Allen beating Josh Allen, the linebacker for the Jaguars, beat the quarterback. I'm Josh Allen. It was pretty much that kind of game 2 weeks ago. And then they were actually pretty competitive in the Colts game before, the talent deficit, came in to creep them into their demise. So in essence, pretty much, it could have been a trap game in the land of AEW, in the land of All Elite Wrestling. So we get into the game itself between this team, this scrappy team in the Jaguars, and the 49ers looking to get to 500, an even winning record in layman's terms. They need to get to 5-5, to get, I guess, for people that, wanting to accept a playoff berth and, a backdoor into the playoffs for whatever reason. They need to get to 5-5 in a very, very chaotic playoff race. So we get to the first quarter, Niners get the ball, and it was pretty much all 49ers in this first quarter because, yeah, just like on Monday night with the LA Rams, they pretty much held onto the ball for much of this quarter. Kyle Shanahan was designing a lot of runs in the middle, which, it didn't work against the more quality competition. He was playing pretty conservatively, but here, since it's Jacksonville, since they suck so much, they were able to run it down their throats. Jeff Wilson Jr. was the starting back because Elijah Mitchell was not able to play because he had a procedure on a broken finger days prior. So Jeff Wilson got the nod, and I think he did pretty all right. He did pretty okay. Trey Sherman was also the backup, so both of them did okay here, but it was Jeff Wilson's show to run to start things off. Nonetheless, the Niners were able to move this ball pretty well. There were no crazy things happening other than, Jeff Wilson nearly fumbled away the possession, but I think it was Trent Sherfield. He saved the fumble. So that was a heads-up play by him. And then once the Niners got to the 2-yard line of the Jaguars, they stopped. They stopped being persistent. So when it got to third down, Jimmy G sailed a pass high to Jeff Wilson, but then at the same time, Jeff Wilson stopped running. He stopped running his route. He was like, "Oh, I need to stop here," and then "Oh, I gotta run again." And then by the time he ran it, it was too late. The ball already passed where he needed to go, and both of them cost each other a touchdown. So instead of taking a chance to go for it on fourth down, I don't know why Kyle Shanahan did this, but he decided to chicken out and settle for 3. And my initial thought was, Kyle Shanahan should have went for it on fourth down, even if they don't get it against a Jaguars defense, a very mid Jaguars defense. They could have at least put their offense well near deep in their own end zone. And, the Niners defense had it's a defense that can pretty much put Trevor Lawrence into the position of a safety. 2 points pretty much. So despite that lapse, 3-0 lead. The Jaguars finally get the ball after 13 minutes of the Niners ball controlling. Damn, 13 minutes of all 49ers football. That is insane. That is a crazy amount of time. The Niners were able to hang on to that ball. So the Niners were able to quickly take Trevor Lawrence off the field as soon as they got it. You saw a lot of good heads-up plays by Jimmy Ward, and then Nick Bosa and that front four were able to generate pressure up front onto the first overall pick. And yeah, like I said, they pretty much got the ball back as soon as the Jags were able to, get their opening drive started. So the 49ers pretty much got the ball back, and they ended the quarter with a big catch and run by Brandon Ayuk. And Brandon Ayuk, I gotta say, he's pretty much been sticking it to Kyle Shanahan for the last couple of weeks. He's saying, F your damn doghouse. Like, I can prove to you that I don't belong there. And he's been doing it. And I'll explain why in a bit. So we go to the second quarter. The short and passing and run game, continue to be successful for the 49ers. And like I say, it's not gonna be successful down the line when they face more quality competition. But I mean, hey, it's working, I guess. Whatever. So Deebo Samuel capped off this drive, and he gets a 25-yard touchdown, and it's becoming 10-0 early on. And later on, for the 49ers' next possession, literally on the first play of the second quarter for the Jags, they fumbled it away. And this was because Josh Norman and Jimmy Ward forced a fumble on Jags receiver Laviska Shenault. Yeah, that is an interesting name. So the Niners quickly get the ball back, and they turn that turnover into points. Brandon Ayuk gets a touchdown from Jimmy G, 17-0, right out of the gate. So this was getting out of hand for the Jaguars, but also benefiting for the 49ers. So the Jags, much later on in the quarter, seemed primed to make it a 10-point game on their next chance, but self-inflicted wounds killed them. False start, bad decision by Trevor Lawrence to scramble it well away from the first down marker, and they had to settle for 3. They just wanted to get on the board instead of trying to take a chance to make it a 10-score game, a 10-point game. So it was 17-3 by the time the half was nearly over, but the Niners were not done there yet, because they still had to run the 2-minute drill, and they actually got into field goal range. Trey Sherman got a big catch and run, and Robbie Gould was able to get in his range and hit a big field goal, 20-3, 49ers halftime lead. So I'm like, at this point, at the first half, they pretty much stole the first quarter away from the Jaguars. They ran the ball down their throats. The Jags were committing stupid ass mistakes on defense. And also, I forgot to mention this. One player also got ejected at some point on the Jags defense, for punching. I think it was Jawan Jennings. Some dumbass got ejected, and that pretty much also hurt the Jaguars too. So the Jaguars are a very bad team, and Kyle Shanahan was just able to play his brand of football. He was able to call his plays however he wanted. He ran the ball down pretty much the Jaguars' throats, and Jimmy G was able to dink and dunk on a bad Jaguars defense that was also hurt again by the ejection during the game, and they were able to jump to a 20-3 halftime lead. So were they able to keep it up? Well, let's talk about it. So the Jags get the ball to start the second half, and right away, just like in their first opening half possession in the first half, they have to leave again. The Jaguars have to leave again because they can't do shit. Trevor Lawrence throws 3 straight incompletions and 3 and out very quick for the Jaguars. And the offense burned even more clock for the 49ers. Because on the 49ers side of things, Trent Williams actually nearly got a big man touchdown reception. But Jimmy G, what are you doing? You gotta hook, line, and sucker that thing for the big man. You gotta let him loose on that thing. And Trent Williams, you gotta get a little bit of hop there. You gotta get a little bit of jump there. But anyway, so it's 4th and goal on the Niners' first possession of the second half. And this time around, unlike, the 49ers' first possession of the game, Kyle Shanahan actually tries to go for it on 4th down. And which is kind of weird, I mean, after 13 minutes in the first quarter, he didn't go for it, and now he wants to go for it on the first opening possession of the second half. I'm like, wow, why? Why now? Okay. But I guess that didn't matter much because they were able to punch it in anyway. Jimmy G passes it to George Kittle, 27-3, and at this point, it's pretty much a done deal, at least going forward, because it was pretty much the punting show. But there's some good things out of this. Nick Bosa is pretty much going on the up and up, man. 2 sacks on Trevor Lawrence, 2 big ones, and then we got to the fourth quarter. The Niners were supposed to punt. Jimmy G gets sacked, and they had to punt, but Trent Sherfield, the 49ers backup wide receiver, makes a heads-up play, and he pickpockets a punt return that Tavon Austin just didn't decide to pick up. So Tavon Austin muffs a punt, and Trent Sherfield just goes ahead and steals it from him, and he gives the Niners another chance at offense, and they turn that into 3 points. So it's 30-3, and the Jaguars, for whatever reason, they turned that to 30-10 because James Robinson decided to run that bad boy in at the goal line, and this is so weird. The backups were already in at this point. No starters except for Fred Warner was in there, but it was just weird. After the touchdown by the Jaguars, pretty much everyone was celebrating. Everyone was celebrating that touchdown as if they won the game. And Lawrence was putting his arm on Urban Meyer's shoulder, all smiling, "Oh yeah, we got a touchdown. We're gonna win this game." And it was that kind of motion. He's got his arm around his head coach's shoulder. It's we're all good here. Yeah, we're all pals and buddies here in Jacksonville. We're all elite. We're all friends with the Cucks of Suck, with Nick and Matt Jackson and Cody Rhodes and Kenny Omega. Yeah, we're all good here in AEW land. What kind of operation are you running here, man? So to close out this all elite blowout, we do get to see a little bit of Trey Lance, performing mop-up duty, but he did get a first down run to pretty much shut the door on this AEW blowout in the land of all elite wrestling. So overall, a pretty dominant win, pretty dominant game by the 49ers. That was pretty much sealed in the third quarter, but they dominated this game with ball control, good decisions for Jimmy G, and Brandon Ayuk, probably the one of the players of the game. Deebo Samuel and George Kittle also had good games, even though that Deebo and Kittle were shadowed all game by the Jags, but that created windows for Brandon Ayuk to get open, so that was good for Ayuk as he continues to prove to Shanahan that, hey, you shouldn't have put me in that doghouse, dog. So Trey Sherman also had himself a decent game, playing in relief of Elijah Mitchell, but I can kind of see why that they don't want to play him yet, but you got to give him more opportunities. Let him be active on game days. The defense also made a lot of big plays on a Jaguars offense that still isn't very good. But remember though, every good thing that's happening here, you got to remember that they're playing the Jaguars, who are one of the worst teams in the NFL. And yeah, we took advantage of many of their mistakes that the Jaguars pretty much shot themselves in the foot for most of this game. So we got to just keep things a little bit in perspective here as we move towards the rest of the season, especially when we face teams like the Seahawks, who are imploding right now, the Falcons, the Texans, and even the Titans. The Titans are like self-destructing themselves too. So just kind of keep things in a little bit of a perspective, because, well, yeah, what the Niners are doing for the last 2 weeks are good, and they're finally back at an even 5-5 record. They still have some things to work on too, and they got to make some necessary adjustments for the more quality competition. But for now, you fans, can rejoice in the land of all elite wrestling. But it is what it is. This was a good win. This was a really good win. So now, for the winners and losers of the game. My first winner, Jimmy Garoppolo. For as much as I rag on him being Jimmy Garbage fail and all that, I gotta give credit where credit is due. Because, Jimmy G, for as much as I should be seeing more of Trey Lance, Jimmy G has been playing much better than he was during the first half of the season. He's being erratic, holding the ball on for too long, throwing a lot of turnovers, but for the last, at least the last 3 weeks, he's only had one turnover, to be realistic with you. And he's been taking care of the ball more. And yeah, he still throws the check downs and mid-chunk throws and always relying on the yards after carry by his receivers. He's been, like I said, he's been taking care of the football and no bonehead mistakes, no turnovers. He's been playing, not really great football, not like good ass football, but, somewhat alright-ish football. That not like, remarkably like stunning. However, I also just fear that, the football that Jimmy G has been playing lately, I just fear that, John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan are going to be like, oh, maybe he's worth keeping around for another year. I'm like, no. Like, after this season, I'm like, your main focus should be Trey Lance after this season, regardless of what Jimmy G does the rest of the way. But for now, Jimmy G's doing just fine. Brandon Ayuk, I really wonder why Kyle Shanahan put Ayuk in the doghouse, because this guy has been a big part of this offense for the last 3 weeks. He's been taking good care of the football, aside from that fumble in Arizona, which wasn't really his fault. He's been doing well with his routes, running well, evading defenders. He's also like Jimmy G's like go-to option when Deebo Samuel and George Kittle are being like covered as hell. And, Brandon Ayuk is doing well, getting open when, Samuel, Kittle, or anyone else is being covered by the opposition. So this is good stuff I'm seeing from Ayuk. So I'm glad he's being back to being an integral part of this offense because, this is good stuff I'm seeing from him. Now, as for some of the losers, again, these are just like last week. These are all minor losers that I just want to see things cleaned up. The offensive line, they protected Jimmy well up until the second half, where they just gave up 2 unnecessary sacks on him, and they let the pocket collapse late, and that forced Jimmy G to run it well short to set up the last field goal of the game. So I know the game was already decided well then and there, but I just hope that they're able to protect Jimmy G when they face more tougher front sevens down the line. Especially next week, Minnesota. They have they don't have the most ferocious defensive line out there, but you got to protect your quarterback at the end of the day. K'Wan Williams. I know he didn't have a good second half. He kind of lapsed on a couple of plays, and I don't know if it was him or I think it was Jaquaski Tart that committed pass interference in the end zone. But either way, I think there's just some things that K'Wan Williams, can clean up, can get mentally prepared for as they prepare for a big game next week. Now, sir, for my takeaways for the game, we just got to keep things in perspective when it comes to the 49ers quality of competition the rest of the way. It's good that they're fixing things. They're trying to develop strategies to win right now, but you got to remember the competition, the quality of the competition they're facing the rest of the way. Starting with this game, it wasn't great at all. They were playing the Jaguars, one of the worst teams in the NFL. They were playing a defense aside from Josh Allen and Miles Jack. Everyone else on that defense sucks ass. And on the offensive side, Trevor Lawrence doesn't have any help at all. So we have to keep that in mind. And then going forward, aside from the Vikings and the Bengals, there isn't really much competition the Niners need to worry about. I mean, the Seahawks, yeah, I mean, you always have to worry about Russell Wilson, but even him, he's not doing well. He's not doing so hot either. The Falcons, like the Titans, just got, like I said, they self-destructed this week against the Texans, and who knows what they're going to be like in the next couple weeks, despite having the on paper easiest schedule remaining. And then speaking of those Texans, yeah, watch out, they might be a trap team too. So some of these wins may not matter come playoff time, and some of the things that are working now may not work when it comes to facing the quality competition if they get into the back door of the playoffs. So think less of the wins that the 49ers are getting. So it's like kind of like quality over quantity when it comes to these wins. So another takeaway is I think this formula of controlling the clock by Shanahan, I'm not opposed to it, but I'm just kind of concerned of how it's going to play out against the better competition. I mean, for now, I guess it works, but I mean, I guess I can't really complain about it too much because hell, if it keeps the opposition, the opposing offense off the field, and it gets the defense tired, I mean, heck, it's not so bad, I guess. And then last but not least, like I said, these wins better not mean another year of keeping Jimmy G. It's like, I mean, I like the dude as a person, but as a quarterback, you don't know which Jimmy G you're going to get. Are you going to get the good? Are you going to get the good one? Or are you going to get the Jimmy garbage fail? So, the wins that they're getting with Jimmy G, or the wins around Jimmy G that you're getting, I just hope this doesn't mean another year of him, prolonging Trey Lance's development. So, hopefully that doesn't mean that. So overall, those are my thoughts on, this dominant Week 11 win over the Jacksonville Jaguars. Again, they're a pretty shitty team, but hey, the Niners took care of their business. They didn't fall into the trap of this all-elite bullshit. They were not like, we don't give a shit about your cucks of suck. We don't give a shit about Kenny Omega, your flips and kicks and all that bullshit. None of that all-elite bullshit. None of that Tony Khan man crap. They weren't buying it. They clearly were not buying it. So good on them. They also had a lot of good things going for them in this game. So can they keep it up next week? Well, let's talk about this important Week 12 game against the Minnesota Vikings. This is a matchup where, for people that do care, that want to ride the wave, I guess. This is an important matchup for the 49ers because between the 49ers and the Vikings, this is a match that'll determine the playoffs, the playoff tiebreaker, those standings. This matchup between the 49ers and the Vikings, it's going to go a long way to determine who gets in and where they'll stand if any of these two teams get into the postseason. My stance on this already with the 49ers. I mean, like I said, I shouldn't be thinking about postseason, but here we are. And the fact that, this NFC and even the AFC, this whole playoff picture is a whole clusterfuck. Yeah, here we are. So let's take a look at this game in Week 12. The Minnesota Vikings. They have honestly been a very 50-50 team. They're 5-5, just like the 49ers. But a lot of their wins and losses have been in one-score games. And that's because they have been in a lot of nail-biting affairs all season long. They've either been from behind, or they've been in overtime, or they just win or lose because of their own self-inflicted wounds. They Mike Zimmer either conservatively coaches them to death, or it's something that just inexplicably happens. And not a lot of it unlike in the past, not a lot of it comes down to Kirk Cousins. The only thing that I could say Kirk Cousins cost him the game with was Week 8 against the Dallas Cowboys, where he mentally shrunk so bad he got outplayed by the Cowboys' backup Cooper Rush. But other than that, Kirk Cousins has been relatively productive for his team. He hasn't cost his team like the game not that many times. So he's been pretty like passive aggressive, I guess you could say. So he's not like, he's still kind of conservative, but he's also pretty damn aggressive when it comes to throwing the football, taking more chances than usual. So I guess he's like looking over his shoulder over whoever the Vikings have at quarterback, but I guess he's trying to understand that, oh shit, okay, so something is going to happen if I don't do something here in Minnesota. So, I mean, Kirk Cousins has been doing pretty well. But I guess I'd say better than years past with Minnesota. And then Dalvin Cook, I mean, he's still a good running back. I mean, he hasn't been as effective as before, but, he's a running back that's still hard to deal with. Second-year receiver Justin Jefferson, he has been hard to target, take down by the opposition. So he continues to be Cousins' go-to target. And this should be a point of emphasis for the 49ers. Adam Thielen, I mean, he hasn't been as targeted by Cousins. And I guess it's also because defenses target him mainly and not Justin Jefferson. So still, this is, at least now, Kirk Cousins has two weapons on both sides. Defensively, the Vikings pretty much have allowed opposing teams to keep things close until the very end, because for all the things that the offense does, the defense just can't get in its own way. They don't have the ability to shadow opposing receivers. They barely make enough plays. Their pass rush is kind of non-existent. Like, I don't like, every time I see highlights of the Vikings, I don't see a lot of pass rush. Like, not many in this instance. So when it comes to the Minnesota Vikings, like I said, they have a 5-5 record. They lost a lot of close ones to the Cardinals, the Ravens, but they did get some big wins as of late. They beat the LA Chargers in SoFi, and they beat at home recently the Green Bay Packers in a pretty much a big divisional game. Kirk Cousins and Aaron Rodgers were, honest to God, were battling out in a back and forth duel. At one point, Kirk Cousins and the Vikings actually had a big lead on the Packers, but you never count out Aaron Rodgers. And when the Vikings were down by 1 point, Kirk Cousins brought them back in it, retook the lead, and then when Aaron Rodgers tied it again, Kirk Cousins brought them down to the field to kick the game winner. I mean, that's the story of the Minnesota Vikings this far, is always coming down to the last field goal. So this is a team to beware for the 49ers. Speaking of the 49ers, they're coming off two big wins, two straight big wins in consecutive weeks. The blowout win over the Jaguars and an all-elite big win over the Jacksonville Jaguars in the land of AEW in Jacksonville, in Duval County. They took care of their business. They controlled the clock just like they did in Week 10 against the Rams. They did again against Jacksonville. Brandon Ayuk had another good game, getting open for Jimmy Garoppolo when Deebo Samuel and George Kittle were getting tightly covered. And the defense made a lot of big plays all over a very bad Jaguars offense en route to a dominating 30-10 win in Jacksonville. So despite two dominating wins by the 49ers, this is a test for them. This is a test for them to see if this is gonna be like a legit thing. Like, are their performances against the Rams and the Jaguars, especially on defense, is this going to be the thing that carries them going forward into the playoffs. For as much as I don't want to don't want them to be focusing on playoffs. Or is this going to be like, or just those two wins like an aberration of, those teams, especially the Rams, having an off day. So the Vikings' big upset over the Packers. Like I said, this sets up this Week 12 game as a big one. Probably going to be the America's Game of the Week on Fox. It's not the Sunday nighter, even though with the high stakes. I mean, I don't really care which time it's on, but this is a big game nonetheless because whoever wins this game gets the head-to-head tiebreaker in the NFC wildcard race. Things are getting crazy as hell in that race, so it's going to be an interesting one. Some keys to victory for both teams. For the Minnesota Vikings, you got to lock down on San Fran's big three: Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, and George Kittle. You got to make Jimmy Garoppolo find other places to throw that ball to, other than those big three. And, you got to make them rattled. You got to make them rattled in the pocket with that front four. You got to shut down that running game, whether it's Elijah Mitchell. We don't know if he's going to be active by the time of this recording. We don't know who's going to be the starting running back, whether it's Jeff Wilson, Elijah Mitchell, or even Trey Sherman. The Vikings got to shut down that running game because Kyle Shanahan likes to use that a lot, especially in this last 2 weeks, and he's probably going to use that going forward. Kirk Cousins, he cannot shrink under pressure. This is going to be a big time game, not even like last week. It was a big game against the Green Bay Packers. Cousins barely beat Rodgers ever in his career. He's only beaten him twice, I think in 2018 at home and in 2020 in an empty Lambeau Field. So this was only I think this is only his third time he beat Aaron Rodgers. So he cannot shrink under pressure mentally in another big game for the Minnesota Vikings. So he's got to follow up his success. He's got to find pretty much just about everybody, and he's got to make some good decisions in this game if he wants his Vikings to beat a Niners team that's building on some good momentum. Speaking of the 49ers, what they have to do to beat a Vikings team that's been red hot as well, Nick Bosa and Arden Key for that 49ers defensive line, they got to get up to Kirk Cousins. They got to get after him. They got to get past a offensive line that's been so. So they got to generate some pressure. They shouldn't try to rely on the blitz too often. Kirk Cousins is a stationary quarterback, but he can sometimes get that ball out pretty quickly. So I wouldn't rely so much on the blitz. But Nick Bosa and Arden Key are the key to generating pressure, forcing Kirk Cousins into mistakes, and sacking his ass. The secondary cannot give up any big plays to Kirk Cousins' favorite targets, Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen, because if they give any big plays, any chunk yard plays to Jefferson, it's touchdown city, or it's going to set them up in the red zone, and they don't want that because it'll eventually set up Dalvin Cook. Speaking of Dalvin Cook, you got to contain him inside and out. You got to block any running lanes in the middle and pretty much contain him on the outside, trying to find that out route. So you got to contain Dalvin Cook. Deebo Samuel has got to find a way to break away from double coverage. Same thing with George Kittle, because I noticed in the Jacksonville game, they were getting shadowed a lot, and that's why Jimmy G was going to Brandon Ayuk a lot. And that's a good thing, to inspire confidence in Brandon Ayuk. But it needs to be all hands on deck for all the Niners receivers in this one. And last but not least, just like last week, Jimmy G has to put up or shut up. And it's also just like Kirk Cousins. He can't shrink under the pressure. He can't get rattled by the Vikings front seven. You just got to make the good decisions and not overthink anything. So those are my keys to victory. And we'll see what happens in this interesting game for the 49ers as they look to get a edge on the Minnesota Vikings in the NFC wildcard race. The Niners can beat the Minnesota Vikings. Now, should they? That's another story. I mean, yeah, I guess they should. But, again, I'm not sure if they should be thinking playoffs because, I really want them to focus on Trey Lance. But here we are. Like I said, in a very crowded NFC and very clusterfucky playoff race. So anything can happen in the world of the NFL. But those are just my thoughts on this upcoming game, this big game between the 49ers and the Minnesota Vikings. Let me know your predictions. Let me know your thoughts on what's going to happen in this game. What do you think needs to happen for the 49ers to win? So let me know what you feel about that. But that is it for this episode of Very Cold Lasagna, this recap edition for my San Francisco 49ers. Let me know how you feel after 2 wins for the Niners and a win over the Jacksonville Jaguars in the land of all elite wrestling. That dominant 30-10 win. And what do you think is going to happen when the Niners face the Minnesota Vikings in a big Week 12 matchup to determine who gets that tiebreaker edge for the NFC wildcard race? So let me know how you feel about all those things that we talked about on today's show. But that is it for now. I am DylanLasagna, the host of Very Cold Lasagna, signing off on today's episode. Make sure to follow the show on Twitter and Instagram at Very Cold Lasagna. Listen to the show on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Anchor FM, and Google Podcasts. Make sure you give the show a thumbs up on all platforms, and keep that lasagna very cold in the fridge with your takes on the world of pro wrestling and sports. Very cold in the fridge. That's tasty as a very cold lasagna, but also tasty like a spicy one too. Anyway, that's it for now. Until next time, peace out.